Welcome to Philly Coco Presents Side Project Spotlight, episode 17. This is the developer's journey to making cool stuff. We will ride shotgun on this long road trip. I'm Kotaro.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are Philly Coco, a Philadelphia-based Coco Heads community focused on Apple development that primarily, but not exclusively, means iOS, Mac, tvOS, and watchOS development. Philly Coco's true desire is to take you higher on your own developer journey. Whew. All right.
Nice.
Now we got that out of the way. We can go back to talking about our sultry voice.
Right.
Oh, my goodness. So,
what is on the agenda today?
On the agenda today is that, so just to catch up, our prior podcast, we had an interview with Mohammed Fani, which was a great interview. Highly recommend it. And now we are trying to sort of get back and figure out the status of our current side project, which is a to-do list app for the Mac, primarily for the Mac. We will have an iOS version, but the goal is to make a Mac first app. And where are we?
Where are we? I think code wise we're where we were a few weeks ago.
No, we made some progress. I made some progress.
Oh, we did. You did make some progress.
I mean, so it's hard to remember where we were in the last, was it a month almost? From the last update of where we were.
We had the app that it had basically core data in the cloud, or at the CloudKit working, but didn't have a fleshed out model or anything. It was just kind of a temporary model just to make sure that the plumbing worked, and didn't have a UI yet of any significance.
Right. So basically, I went about kind of like fleshing out that model for a little bit, just to sort of like not have just relying on the generic templated timestamp, and kind of like trying to explore that opportunity. I did a little bit of that, and then I kind of got Wayward, which is code for like some article on Ray Winderlich was like catnip to me, and I went down a bad rabbit hole called shared containers. Which is great because like it was such a pain to find like really good examples of that. So just for context, like CloudKit has 3 different types of databases that you can sort of like, think of it like you're defaulted to usually like private, so just the user can only see their own data. Then there was public, which is like everyone, like if you share it in the public's database, everyone can see it. It's kind of like a shared database. And then there's something called shared, which is kind of like you can share this this item with one of some other CloudKit user, right? So it's kind of like how Apple's to-do list, Notes app can share notes. It's very similar. It uses kind of a similar approach.
And that works pretty well, actually. We use it.
Yeah. So yeah, I got caught in that. The implementation to do that to set up is a little tricky, and I was trying to explore that, and then I realized, wait a minute, I don't even have a good to-do list app to start. As a private app.
I need a to-do list app to get my to-dos together to build a to-do list app.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was.
Is that why you were saying to me, like, I really need this to exist? Because you were like, I need something to put my to-dos down for building this to focus
on properly doing a to-do list app. So I mean, the other thing too is like I've begun to notice the limitations. So just for context, like the way I generally do to-dos is have like 3 items, like spend about a day, like really more like 15 minutes just kind of going over what I'm going to do for the week, and kind of get a broad, like maybe 3 things that I know I need to do per day for that week, and kind of check them off as I go. But there's no way I've noticed a pattern that I don't check off like maybe 1 or 2 items each day. And it's one of those weird, it's a really weird phenomenon in my mind of like, I set out to do it. They're not hard. it's like a mental block of some kind where I just don't want to finish it. But it's kind of interesting because I'm more curious about like, okay, well, what's going on there, right? Like, is it a specific type of to do? Is it just the pattern that I'm just like, I average 2 for 3, right? like is that my batting average, and I just don't want to have to do that one thing like vacuum cleaning or something like that.
Yeah, you
right?
got to set your whip lower.
Yeah, exactly. So they're so, and they don't have anything related to time. So there's no way to know, for example, maybe they're too big of an item to have as one, and I need to break them apart, right? Like the to do is too large of a concept. Like, I don't know, taxes, right?
Yeah. Well, let's hope that's done.
Yeah, that's done. That's done.
It's now May 15th. We're recording this.
You know, it just
sounds like you need a category for your app, and you have to do at least one don't want to do item every day.
Yeah. Like some way to like identify those things, right? And the thing that's struggling for me, and this is where I had my blockers, was like, well, that's a very specific problem. Right? That's a problem for me, not a problem for Aaron and Steve that get their crap done.
I don't know, maybe it is. If you had a way to track it, you could figure that out. So.
Right. And that's kind of where
I don't think that's a particularly personal problem. I think a lot of people have that problem.
Thank you, Aaron. I feel seen.
I think everybody has that problem with not getting stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes though, it could just be that you really don't have the time, or it could be that your real priorities don't align with how you've written down your to-dos. You know, like maybe you're just prioritizing something else, but maybe it's not being captured by your to-do system, or maybe you're just procrastinating. And again, I don't think software is going to help.
I was about to say, it's like the priority is YouTube or Netflix.
Yeah. I mean, that's a problem that software can't necessarily help.
Or StarCraft in my case.
StarCraft, that's still a thing.
Yeah.
I guess so. I used to play
StarCraft
that.
2 is amazing.
That game's how old is StarCraft 2?
Oh, it's really old.
I guess I used to play one of the StarCraft games.
2009, I believe it came out.
Oh, really?
It's the one that was older than that. I used to play the older one, StarCraft, the original.
The original. Yeah.
1990.
That was when
98 or 99. It's pretty old.
That was when LAN parties were a thing.
Oh, I remember. I did the LAN party thing. Lugged my tower, custom built tower PC, bunch of fans in it and stuff.
Got to drag it to your friend's house. Got to connect the Ethernet.
I think we were still using CRT monitors, or maybe early LCD monitors at the time or something. And yeah, we had to bring all the cables. It took us like an hour or two to get everything hooked up and get our hub put together and our LAN cables.
Man. I remember when we were in the dorms, we used to like pipe cables, like Ethernet cables, like through the we piped Ethernet cables down the floor to like from like the second floor to the fourth floor to the second floor or something like that. Something really funny, like and then get that kind of setup going. That was hilarious. Oh man.
Oh yeah, I remember what John Gruber
Oh yeah
came to campus many years ago, and he told a story about the dorms at Drexel. He went there, and it was like just like you described. And he was telling the story of running like a line out a window to get to get the network connected between two floors until somebody, I think, saw a glimmer from a distance, like coming out of the dorm room window, and who did that got caught, and they took it down. But yeah, apparently before my time there at the university, that was a very common thing.
Shout out to you, John Gruber, and fellow Drexel alumni.
That's right.
Philly alumni, or Philly native, I should say.
Oh yeah, he's still here
somewhere.
Yeah, doing well. He's doing well.
Dodging us.
Dodging us. Yeah, I still read Daring Fireball. It's great.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So, what's your excuse, Steve?
So I did. I sat down after our last podcast, and I was like, "What are we building?" and I didn't know how to move forward in any kind of implementation. So then I took a step back. and I started thinking, like, what is the problem we're trying to solve? There's also advice that we got from our friend Zorn, Mike. And then I listened to our podcast when we were talking about the types of the things we wanted the app to solve. And I tried to kind of condense it down and figure out like a model that worked. And I did a little research and actually found some existing products and ideas that seem like they're similar to what we kind of came up with. And they seem to lean more towards the idea of goal tracking more than like a regular like reminders style to-do app, like a little higher level. And I found some interesting YouTube videos we can go into later in this podcast. I found another app that actually implements very similar idea to what I was sketching out on the whiteboard, but it seems somewhat popular. It's called Strides. So I basically started doing a bunch of research and whiteboarding, and I didn't actually implement anything because I think we needed to talk about it. And then last week or last recording session was our interview, so we didn't really get into it until now because there was lots of other stuff going on in our lives. We couldn't get an extra recording time in. That was the original plan. And so that's what it is. So I actually made, I think, actual contribution, even though it's not code, but I did think about the problem. And, for a long time, I was like, sketching. I have a picture of my whiteboard. I have some stuff on my whiteboard. I was sketching. I found links and resources, took some notes on stuff. Read a blog article.
Is that on Trello board?
Yeah, stuff is on the Trello board. Okay. So so I was thinking about the problem because we're trying to build something that's, first of all, that's the scope is small enough for us to build, and it's actually useful to us. So I think it pays to spend the time up front to really think about it, so we're not spinning our wheels and re-implementing core data models, over and over again. Because it's really what happened. I sat down, I was like, wait a second, if I start messing with these models and I don't really know, it's probably fine in development, but it's like, do I want to go through that hassle?
I'm looking at your notes right now. I'm looking at your screenshots, and I say one of your excuses that ninjas attacked your house.
Wait, did I say ninjas?
You said ninjas attacked your house.
What?
You slept until 11:30 p.m. Whoops. No, I'm just looking at some of your notes. That's
you're in the Slack?
No, I'm in your Trello board when you were talking about screenshots.
Oh, I don't even know what you're talking about.
The Martin system.
Oh, the Martin system. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was that's just some guy, a guy named Martin.
Okay.
We can talk. We'll talk about it when we get to that point. I don't want to belabor it right now.
Yeah,
we still got to talk to Aaron thing, but we'll talk about that because I thought that was hilarious. But also, I thought this was a really good little. I don't know where this guy got it from originally, if he just came out with himself and everything. But I thought it was a pretty good system for paper. And then I found an app that kind of implements a very similar thing. So I think it's like one of those ideas that a lot of people come to. Because it's literally like what I was thinking of too. Like it was very similar to what I was thinking. I think it's just you just end up going there when you start thinking about the same kind of constraints. So that was me. So it's a combination of I actually did research, and apparently ninjas. I don't remember saying ninjas attacked my house, but that
was his screenshot. So ninjas.
Oh, his screenshot. I was like, okay, that makes more sense. Yeah, I was like, why would I? I mean, if I was gonna make up a story, I mean, it would be robots, not ninjas or aliens, man. Something like that.
I mean, I know pirates and ninjas were a thing, but they were like a thing at different points in time.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know what the new hotness is, but robots make sense. Figure it's kind of cyclical in that sense. Anyway.
Yeah.
Now we're here now we can hear Aaron's excuse.
Oh yeah, not anything in particular other than just being busy with work. So.
Well, yeah, your new job, right?
Yeah. Not much to talk about there. Just busy all the time. So,
I mean, that's one of the things that is the challenge. If we're diving into this whole concept of a side project, is finding the time and motivation in a lot of ways, because we're spending literally like 8 hours coding, or not 8 hours altogether, but like thinking of a problem, looking at the screen, being in Xcode. All that hot mess that comes with it, and yeah, it's not going to be easy to like have to do 2 to 3 more hours of it.
Right.
Going,
Right.
"Oh, okay, I just want to.
I think if listeners can get something from this podcast, the fact that we kind of record these live discussions here, is that doing a side project's not easy for anybody. So don't feel discouraged. You know, if you fall off the wagon, it's hard for you to find the time. I'm finding myself personally that it's really hard for me to do stuff at night after a day, and I'm trying to get my sleep schedule set up so I can get up earlier, because it's like I have more energy in the morning. So maybe I can if I could just make sure I get enough sleep. Of course, I can get up just an hour earlier and work on stuff then, and then I won't feel as bad about not making it, because the evening also has a lot of other competing things that happen in life. That's when other stuff happens, or I need to go out somewhere, I need to run an errand, or I need to I have other projects that have to be done, and other people are only available in the evening sometimes. So collaborating with. So it's like it's difficult in the evening, and and then you're tired after 8 hours of.
That's kind of why I was joking. It's like, I need to get this to do app done, because like this is. But even then, it's ultimately the old saying goes, you can't have time if you don't make time, right? So like.
Right.
Identifying like when are the optimal times to work, when do you feel like you can have the energy to do it is the challenging part, right? Like, and then like committing that time, that's the discipline part, right? It's like saying, okay, like from 6 to 8 a.m. in the morning is dedicated to this, or like people make time to work out, right? It's the same. It's the same type of analogy in that sense.
I use my calendar for that. I try to, as I think I've said before, I try to make my calendar considered a hard landscape, like a commitment to myself is what I'm saying. So I put it on my calendar. I treat it like a commitment to myself, so that I'm less likely to break it.
Now, I get on some level, the tough part about programming is very similar to like when you do art. There's a flow you kind of have to like build up some time to get into, at least for me. And just like build a rhythm and build up the kind of like I guess build up the flow, right, and get into that zone. And a lot of days you're just not going to have it. So I always try to focus on I always call them easy wins, even though I hate the word easy.
Yeah, it's like easy in quotes, easy.
Well, when I say I hate the word easy, people just kind of flippantly use it like, oh, I just need to change the banner. That should be easy, right? Without really realizing that banner affects like multiple screens in multiple different areas, and if your test coverage doesn't cover that part, well,
yikes,
you won't notice it until you see it in production, right? Like, so when people say easy, especially when managers or people who might not understand the depths of the architecture, that's when my spider sense tingles. But when I mean easy wins, it's like, okay, implementation should be straightforward. Or like, for example, okay, I add an app icon that's moving the needle a little bit, or I'm adding at least the skeletons, right? The basic views, placeholder views, areas where I know like I'm going to use that part, right? Then I'll put those in just to move the needle forward just a little bit. And that's the type of thing where I feel like if you've committed an hour to that, you can at least like use that time for those types of easy wins.
Right.
At least that's how I tend to approach. Like if I have to treat it like a committed time frame of like, if I don't have a full 8 hours and maybe I have like 1 or 2 hours, I might look at that as like, okay, like what do I need to do, and just focus on that one thing.
Right. Yeah. Time boxing.
Yeah.
Is what it sounds similar to. It's like that. That's a system I've used in the past, and I'm trying to use again. Especially as nowadays I seem to just have more meetings breaking up my week, and meetings are the worst for productivity. So, and there's too many projects going on. Like I look at this list of like half a dozen things; they're all very disparate, and I'm like, I mean, like, what do I even focus on at any given time? And so I have to start just planning my days better, because it just gets away from you. You get distracted or go down one rabbit hole, or you start working on one problem, and then if you don't have a time box, you can end up just spending all your time on it when you actually needed to spend time on something else. So, yeah, it's tough. And there's no one app or system or anything that can solve these problems. It's just a matter of you got to find the combination of tools and process and discipline that works for you.
Yes.
And so we're trying to work on a tool that will work for all of us. It's called a segue. It's called a segue.
It's such a programmer's mentality of like,
it is.
Let's
it is. We are programmers.
Let's solve this with a program.
It's true. It's very true. It's like we have a hammer of Swift, and everything is a nail we want to bash with it. Apparently,
why don't we just build a blockchain while we're at it?
Yeah, make it as Swift on the server, blockchain stuff.
No, okay, that bad suggestion. Sorry, do not segue into anything here. That's not what we're here for.
But so after that beautiful segue, do we want to talk about the to-do research I did?
Yes, I definitely do.
So, what I was saying earlier in the introduction part here, I looked into, I listened to our podcast, and I looked and I tried to figure out like condense it down to what is it that we were trying to do, and I wrote stuff in the Slack, but basically it came down to something similar to, I think, this Martin system I found. So the story goes, I went onto YouTube essentially because all programmers and everybody now just starts their research on YouTube. We used to go to Wikipedia. Before that, we used to use Yahoo. Now I just go to YouTube. So there's a like kind of, I guess he's kind of a productivity guy, or I've been following for a long time, like Thomas Frank is a nice YouTube channel. And I was literally just searching for, I don't know, stuff like, to-do apps or goals system. I was looking, I don't remember what I searched for, but it was his video came up called A Better Way to Track Your Habits. That's what it was called. And in there, he describes this system that his friend Martin created. So it's called the Martin system. Although it should be called the Martin method, because that would have the alliteration. But this is a system his friend, apparently Martin, came up with on paper to track all kinds of goals. And so I don't need to describe it audio form, but it basically comes down to you create the equivalent of a sprint. I don't remember what he calls it, but you like a 2-week period of time, and then you write at the top of the page that like the date, like the days, like if you start on January 1st, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, up to like the 15th. And then those are your columns. And then you put down on the page like your goal, like if exercise is one of your types of goals, you have a goal, and then you say, what do I want to do in that to accomplish that goal? Like I want to climb, or I want to lift, or I want to run 15 minutes of cardio. And then for each one of those columns, you're going to track whether you accomplish it on that day. So you either put a plus sign for him, he says he did it, or minus sign, I didn't do it, or like a 0, and I think that's like I didn't do it, but it wasn't my fault, or like something came up. So you just he just wanted to track this. So you do all kinds of stuff. He has examples like he wants to be in bed by 10:30, or he wants to do music. He wants to do 15 minutes of finger, picking, and then he even goes into
what?
Finger picking. Why are you laughing?
What is that?
Finger pick. It's guitar. It's playing guitar without a pick. It's when you're using your fingers. These are actual music. I took a guitar. I have a guitar. This is not some kind of weird thing.
I'm sorry.
Completely derailed on finger picking.
I know. This is the brain fart kicking in, I guess.
No, I guess I know enough musicians, so I know what that is.
Yeah, so that's why Aaron did laugh. But this isn't even my example. It's in the screenshot I took.
No, okay,
anyway.
fine.
But he also talks about other things in here, because I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. But what about, I wanted to track, other things that are like number based or something. And he has that in there too. Like how would you write down or record just, I want to read like 20 minutes a day, or
is that something that you track that he's doing daily, or can he set like intervals of like, okay, every 3 days or every a week or something of that nature?
He has the idea is you're tracking this stuff daily, but it doesn't have to be every day. So some of the stuff he has, like his music example, he wanted to do his guitar practice, but he wanted to do it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So he on his piece of paper, he only wrote boxes around, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday of his sprints. So it's hard to describe, in audio, but so yes, you can do it that way. So if you're doing something every day, then you're gonna have a check every single day. If you're doing something only Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're only gonna do it some of those days. And that way, what you end up with is like this visual representation at the end of your sprint of what you accomplished. And now he's doing it all by paper, but then he goes and does a review. So every sprint or every cycle, and this is also a common thing in productivity systems to do a review. So he does a review. Sure. He writes down notes like what worked, what didn't work, what failed. Like he has failure notes. Like he had like one of these was like on one of the days, ninjas attacked my house. That's where you got that from. Okay. Yeah. Left book at work. So that's why on the 8th, that's why he failed to do something on the 8th.
I believe he has a part where he blames his mom.
Yeah. Ninja. And then he's like psycho review, needs a ninja proof house. So, you know what I mean? So I was like, oh, this is actually a pretty good system. And you can, I can put a link in the show notes to the video and to a blog explanation of a paper habit tracker, and even have like a little download for you if you wanted to try it. But then from this, I was like, oh, this is pretty good. Like you could do this digitally. And I started thinking about that, adapting this kind of system, because it seemed very similar to what we had discussed in a lot of ways. And so I started trying to model something like where you have a goal and you have like an action and a measurement and a days of the week where you're trying to do that measurement. And, I actually ended up finding an app already in the App Store that basically does something very similar called Strides. And the idea there is you can track anything. And the way it works is kind of similar to the way this Martin system is described. You pick some kind of habit, in their case, like a repeating action or a number by a date or a repeating number or something. So they have these templates to make things easier when you set it up. But you pick one of these things, you set up basically what the action is and what type of action it is, and you can set up reminders for it, and then you're supposed to just record it when on that schedule. So if Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I want to do 15 sit-ups, it's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I can get a reminder, and then it'll be tracking. Maybe I want to track whether I accomplished it, or maybe I want to track how many sit-ups. That probably makes more sense. So I was like, I want to track how many sit-ups. So then I'd put in the number there. But maybe you want to track just that you did it. So then that would be a slightly different piece of data you'd be tracking. And then it gives you some stats. And so it's similar to what we were talking about. We wanted to have statistics about it. Now, I don't think that this app is something, I've been trying to use it a little bit. It doesn't really work for me. I don't like the UI so much. I think we can do a simpler kind of UI. And this is also an iOS-based app. So we're looking at more of a Mac app kind of style. Yeah. So it's something to look at because it captures the I think a lot of the concept.
I mean, I want to make it feel like the Mac component of the app is where you do all your data entries. You have your big graphs, your big, like visualizers, that kind of stuff, long term. But the iOS app is much more about stating like, oh, I did this, I did that, maybe like a quick tap of like check, check, check. And maybe like a graze of like, okay, like I did this. Like I don't want it to be I don't want it to be the center of attention in a lot of ways. Just sort of like a quick reaction, a quick like view, no more than a minute should you be in that app on the iOS side. On the Mac side, yeah, sure, you're setting up your days. That's where you would want to do a lot of that stuff.
Right. So I guess the question is, if you had a chance to review any of this stuff, what do you think about this kind of concept that it's not fully fleshed out, but that this kind of concept was really trying to find a way to capture the disparate things that we had discussed in our previous talk about it, which included like exercise tracking from Aaron and something like training peaks. Way to your kind of Kotaro, your style of maybe like a top few to-do list items or like, and I really want something that's more like tracking higher level goals over time that maybe send me off to the specific place where I'm recording that, So it's hard to get everything that kind of fit together in some kind of sure compromise has to be made, but I thought this was nice because I just kind of it felt to me like we were leaning more towards something akin to a goal tracker, but I could be wrong. What do you think?
I'm on board. Certainly from my point of view. I don't know about you, Aaron.
We can. The main thing is trying to nail down something more concrete so we can start like prototyping stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think we'd have to do like a rudimentary UI, or at least, even if we whiteboarded it, or you just sort of like said, okay, this is kind of like the broad strokes of this UI, will be an idea, like something that we want to get ironed out within this next sprint, if you will, as well as the data model to accomplish this. So I think for me at least, I need to sort of read and watch that video, read the any articles related to that, and then watch that video, of course.
It makes so much more sense in the video form, going through the process. But the blog article about it actually goes into more detail about some of the other types. You might think in your head while you're looking at this, how do you do, some other things? Like he had one that I thought was actually good. One of these things I actually wanted to track is in this blog article. He wanted to take 40 photos in this sprint, and I've actually done that kind of thing before. I used to do like a photo a day, or I had like a goals where I want to take X number of photos about something somewhere. So he did that, and the way he tracked it was he had like he was tracking like how many he took on the days, and then he had kind of a running total and underneath, and then when he got to the number, he'd put like a check mark on it. Now that's all very specific to doing it on paper, but the point is that the system is flexible enough, just like that app Strides, where you can track different types of things. Like, do I want to count something, or do I want to just say that I did something, and do I want to do it every day or certain days? Like, that flexibility is kind of just built into a system like this, where you're basically saying, I'm going to try to accomplish some goal by taking an action at specific days, and the action is this, and you model,
Does the goals ever have deadlines?
I mean, you could have a deadline.
Right. So, for example, I want to learn. I want to take a photo a day for the entire year, right?
Yeah, that would be cool. I almost did that. I almost got it. I didn't quite make it. It was really hard.
I mean, and like that's very, like Jitreef kids do that in like in one day.
I know.
Gotta take a picture of my selfie.
Yeah.
So I mean,
but yeah, I figure our app. That's one of the things that I wanted to put into the design was like a date, like a due date.
Sure,
that's an option. And today I use OmniFocus, some other stuff that have different kinds of dates, either due dates or reminder dates or deferred dates. Like that, dates are an important part of planning if you're going to use it for this. I guess a question was for you, Kotaro, was how do you want to use this thing? Like, do you want to put in a whole breakdown of, or do you want to have our app be something that you open up and you say, I have this goal or this thing I need to accomplish, and then break it down to a whole bunch of subtasks in there? Or do you want it to track just that goal, and then you have your subtasks where it's maybe more appropriate, like maybe you broke it down in issues in GitHub, or maybe you put it
so if we were taking the analogy like Jira, right, that horrible project manager software that everyone uses, and I don't care if you like it, it's horrible.
Even people who like it hate it.
Oh man! All right, I'm off my soapbox. I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
no,
Jira.
Man, people tune in for the hot takes.
I know. Okay.
When people start listening to our podcast, they're going to go back in time and listen to these episodes, and they're going to be like,
I'm sorry. That was just. I had a momentary like angry like vein popping moment of like just what I have to deal with. That thing.
Atlassian will never sponsor us now.
Oh no! I do like Jira. I mean, I'm sorry. I do.
We
like,
love Trello.
Trello's fantastic. Speed is a feature, by the way. But anyway, the like it's like an epic, right?
Yes, that's
like
my thinking is epic tracking,
and then you would have the stories inside that epic.
So the question is, how much does our app need to track? I mean, as part of just scoping things down, I also thought if we keep it at the higher level, like an epic level, then that does reduce the amount of complexity. as well. But does it also reduce the usefulness for us to the point where we're not going to use it? So it needs to be something we're all going to use.
Agreed.
And I'm pretty flexible here too, because like I use all kinds of stuff, and it's software. We can always make forks, so it's like not that big of a deal for me if my idea here is not the one that we go with.
I mean, I don't know. I've already spoken about what I want, and for the most part, this seems to address it in some form or fashion. And at the very least, it's worth prototyping. I don't know, in Aaron's case,
Well, I mean, I don't expect our app to replace some like Training Peaks, but what do you think, Aaron? No. You would be able to use our own app for, or like in your world?
I'm sure I could find something. I don't know. Like I always wanted. There's always like things I want to learn how to do, like learn a language or learn how to draw or something like that. Or I'm trying to structure it in a way that makes sense to me and feel like I'm accomplishing a little bit every day. So it might help with some of those things.
I mean, that's what's on my mind, because I as I said before in our previous discussion, I've tried different ways of tracking that for my own edification here, so that I can, or my own motivation, and I haven't found anything that quite worked, because and again, we're software developers, so I'm thinking in terms of the software tools, because they just don't work the way that I want them to.
You were talking a lot about. I don't know if it was you or Aaron, but one of you were talking about this idea of positive reinforcements, ways to identify, like, hey, you've been on this, winning streak, or you've done these 3 times, keep it up. Some kind of way to sort of encourage the
I think I was talking about that in one of our initial meetings about this.
I think that's really
trying to be more positive and try to show what you've actually accomplished.
I like that.
I look at all these things that I haven't done and feeling bad about it. It's like, look at all the stuff that you actually did.
For a version of the app to actually ships, I would say we would need to be able to track some element of things. It doesn't necessarily be all possible things, but we need to I think the prototyping will help us figure out what this will be. But with a track something, and then the positive reinforcement thing, I think there's a lot of ways of doing that. But I like the idea of that being maybe front and center. So maybe there's something to keep in mind when you're doing UI sketches, Kotaro. Like if I open the app up, maybe I want to see how much I've accomplished, like up front. Maybe that's the most important thing. At least maybe on the I don't know which, on the iOS app or the maybe the iOS app might be the better place for that kind of a view, because you're going to open that more often during the day. So anyway, and I think notifications, maybe like to celebrate when you accomplish something, is also something we could put in the first version that's not too onerous to add in there.
Yeah, I mean, either that or like a very basic widget with a graph of
widgets. I keep forgetting widgets exist. I use a few of them, but I keep forgetting. So many years of Apple being like totally against widgets, and then them being relegated to the notification center. I just forgot.
Well, the thing that I don't know if this is a particular topic that we can dive into in a later podcast, but one thing that I've sort of kind of gravitate was this idea that the apps should not, particularly like Apple tries very hard to like hide them now from like reduce the amount that's on your home screen. So that sort of like need for companies, it's kind of a legacy need in some ways of like trying to be front and center, whether it's through notifications or through really obnoxious ways, versus like take what Apple's given you and find like integrations with Siri Intents, widgets, users notifications, something richer that's embedded into the system, versus like trying to just stick it all in the app itself.
I mean, I know we don't want to create like a laundry list of things, but one thing that I think would be really cool is some integration with I don't know what you need to do for this, but integration with the Shortcuts app, at least as a trigger. Yeah. Because
Siri Intents.
Siri Intents. Okay, because I was out with my our mutual friend Mike Fine. You know Mike Fine, right?
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah, we were at the Broken Goblet Brewery on Friday. Mike. Yeah, shout out to Mike. Get him to listen to us. He's like, I don't listen to podcasts much anymore because
Mike Fine. We love you and we see you.
We see you. Yes. But I was out with them. I dragged them over to Broken Goblet Friday night. It was like a beer thing going on over there, and a cool band called Flannel. By the way, it's a Philadelphia covers band, grunge, awesome. And they were playing, and so we were over there for that. But he was showing me these shortcuts he made on his phone, on his little iPhone, I think 13 mini, and they were mostly around photos. And I was like, I forgot the shortcuts app. And he did these. Some of these he had downloaded from somewhere. Some of these he had made himself. And they were doing things like taking a photo and then putting like an emoji over top of me and making it look like an icon. It was some fun stuff we were messing around. He did some where it was like taking a double exposures. These are all photo based things. But the point was, I was like, that's really cool. And that reminded me that shortcuts exist, and nobody apparently uses them. But they're very cool, and you can do so much more in that system than I thought. So I figure maybe at least as a trigger, it might be useful to be able to say when I've accomplished something. Maybe I don't know if that can work as a trigger, but you can do he told me you can do all kinds of stuff as with the triggers for these types of things. I mean, I think that'd be cool because then you could create a shortcut to do something else as long as there's that integration. Like I can imagine if you had like cool lights or something in, some people have like those light up LED lights in their office or whatever. Like, oh, I accomplished my goal, and then it does like a celebration or something. I don't know. I think that kind of support would be cool, and that's the kind of thing that a side project, it makes a lot of sense to put in, even if it's not necessarily like the best business sense to spend time on it, because no one will use it but like us or maybe one other guy. But so what?
The weird thing is like you would be surprised, right? Like shortcuts wasn't even a thing until WidgetKit. Like, well, I shouldn't say that. Shortcuts is one of those things where it's a subset community that knows how to really take advantage of that power, and it provides access to programming things. Right? It's almost like a gateway entry to programming, because it does a lot of things that you pipeline from one process to another. Open up this folder, select all these items in the folder, select all the photos in the folder. You can rename them, you can resize them all at a certain aspect ratio. You have that power, and then you can say maybe even email it to yourself or to some client, right? And then that would be one flow, right? One workflow that you can use. That's just an example of one. Another idea is like very I think without getting too much in the weeds, it was like there was an idea where maybe you get close to a location, and I don't know, a workflow can trigger based on your proximity to that location, and maybe even to some effect, like maybe can detect some sounds. Like one of the things was like dog noise or something like that.
Yeah. He had one, or I think it was like when he attached it to his mount in his car or something, it would trigger this thing and change his like background on his phone, and he had like all kinds of stuff that he was set up. I'm like, man, I'm like the programmer, and I don't do any of that stuff. I was like, what am I doing? I should be messing with my phone more. But yeah, that's Mike. Mike's great at he always finds these, like he takes after his dad, who's also like this big tech person, not like a developer, but like always has these gadgets and stuff. And I think Mike's always finding these like things you can do with especially with like iPhones that I never think to do. I mean, he should really just be working for Apple in their like marketing department. Like, see, look at all the things you can do, guys.
Yeah, I mean, for
normal people, like non-developers. I mean, non-developers, you can do cool things.
Yes.
So I like that idea. So I think that should be in the list of things to do.
Okay.
For it.
So I think we should probably settle on what we want to get accomplished by next sprint.
We need some kind of basic prototyping of the UI. Playing around with some ideas here about how to visualize this. You have examples in the Trello. I put the Strides app we talked about. We talked about Streaks before, which is another goal tracking type of app that has a very different UI. We have Training Peaks, which is exercise focused. Again, very different UI. And then, of course, we have the paper-based Martin system that we discussed today, which is has its own visual language to it, but it's paper-based, but it also might be inspiration. So that's like 4 options in there in the inspiration column that hopefully you can think about. Plus, we already know a bunch of apps. And then we want a model update, which I guess should be based on this discussion around tracking something at the size of an epic, if we were thinking in Jira terms. And I guess to start with, we can model it. We can model it after the the kind of system we were talking about today that I was already whiteboarding anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Something simple. I mean, I was when I was whiteboarding that, I was like, there's still edge cases I wasn't able to capture easily, but that's why we'll just prototype and we'll see what we get. Is there anything else? So UI prototype, some basic model.
Yeah. What I hope to certainly we have figured out at least a general layout, and then maybe even like get started on the data model and the structure of the layout of the basic layout of the app. Hopefully by then.
Yeah, well, you have two apps too, right? Because you want to do it slightly different on the iOS side than the Mac side.
Yeah, I mean that might be something that like it's weird because like normally you would do the inverse, meaning like you would start with the iOS and then you would like stretch it out to the Mac version. I'm not so depending on how like we have our core layout. That might be something that I might change.
Yeah.
It will depend basically.
This is our first time trying to do something that's cross-platform with the Mac and iOS,
right.
So I'm not sure how this works.
Yeah. And certainly as the Mac is the center point.
We're going to focus on the Mac part.
Yeah. So, but for one thing that I did want to say before I forget is today's non-sponsor or not a sponsor. And that is our good friend from last week, mfani.com, his blog, Things I Learn with Mohammed, which is a great blog, tech blog that he kind of covers a lot of Apple specific stuffs and specific tech stuff, I should say. And occasionally he'll have one about personal financing, which is hilarious. Really deep dives into his retirement funds.
I got to read that one. It's TIL with Mohammed, and his last post was all about his recent appearance on this very podcast, and it was very kind and had a lot of good insights in it from the perspective of a guest. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was really helpful to read that, and I think it actually has some useful info for people who might want to be a guest on any podcast in the future as well.
Yep.
And he was very, very positive about Philly Coca. So I guess at least one person thinks we're doing a decent job.
Shout out to you, Mohammed.
Yes, Mohammed. Thank you very much for being on.
So I guess we'll wrap up for today.
Yeah.
You can learn more about Philly Cocoa at phillycocoa.org. There you'll find links to our Slack, meetup schedule, and contact info. If you're feeling generous, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcast and share us with all your developer friends. And one more thing. Walking on water and developing software from a specification are easy, if both are frozen. Till next time, good luck on your own developer journey. We will cheer for you always.
Finger picking.
What is that?